Welcome back to Perry's Pit on GMs for Hire. I am Matthew Perry, and we are back with the Hell in a Cell review. Pay-per-view just ended a couple minutes ago. I had the pleasure of watching all 3 hours of it, and it was better than I thought, honestly. We saw a couple of these matches in the past, specifically at WrestleMania, following that whole WrestleMania theme to the last couple pay-per-views. Obviously, WrestleMania Backlash, they changed the whole name for it, but overall, it was still a good show. There were plenty of good moments. Storylines are furthered, and honestly, I'm not too disappointed. There was one moment that I'll get into later that really had me questioning my entire fandom of the WWE, but we'll get to that later. I wanted to start with a match that actually did not make the pay-per-view because they felt like getting a couple thousand more viewers on SmackDown, that being the Universal title match between Roman Reigns and Rey Mysterio inside a Hell in a Cell. Of course, it was originally supposed to happen tonight. They moved it up for seemingly just views, and it worked out. I'm sure. I'm sure they got more views. We'll see the numbers next week when they come out. But we'll talk about the match a little bit. Roman Reigns, of course, retained as he was expected to. A little wrestling family versus wrestling family going at it. Um, it wasn't a bad match. I've seen better from Reigns. I think we all have. Commercials completely took any intensity out of it. I'd never want to see a Hell in a Cell match or anything of that caliber on cable television again, unless you're going to show it without commercials. Because having this intense fight between Roman Reigns and Rey Mysterio, chairs and going into the cell walls and stuff like that is great. And then you go, and then 1 second later, it's a Charmin commercial. And it's all happy and bright and cheery, and it just doesn't go. It just doesn't fit well for me. It didn't flow well in my opinion, and I think that took a little bit away from my enjoyment of the match. Like I said, we've seen better from both these guys. There were a couple of nice spots. Rey Mysterio had Reigns' head in between the chair as the chair was like unfolded, I guess, and he put him into the cell wall a couple of times. That was pretty inventive, but it ended how most of Reigns' matches have in recent memory, that being the guillotine to finish things off. It was kind of an inverted guillotine this time. The way he did it was kind of like this. And after the match, after he already got the victory, he wound up putting him in the guillotine again, kind of tossing him around. Actually, the spot of the match was right before the finish. He did what Reigns did what he did to Dominic the week prior, power bombing him from the ring out, and this time obviously Rey went off the cell. That was the biggest spot. I don't think Reigns hit a spear or anything like that, but he was still able to get the job done. Decent match. Don't do it with commercials, and I think it gets by. On to the main show. We opened up with a great match, the SmackDown Women's Championship inside a Hell in a Cell, that being between Bianca Belair and Bayley. Bianca was able to pick up the win via the KOD. The KOD was one of the best spots of the night, I would say. It was face first, of course, onto a open ladder. Very, very good spot. There was a back and forth to this, of course. Each of them had their time in the sun, I guess you could say. One of the common themes of this was working the braid. Of course, Bianca Belair has that long braid. There were several times where we saw it tied into something, whether it's the ropes or a chair. And, Bayley used it to her advantage, and then Bianca wound up using it to her advantage at one point. So the braid always comes into play. I wonder how long she's going to have that. Obviously, she has, many, many years left in wrestling in general. It'll be interesting to see if she ever ditches such a long braid. I know it's part of her persona at this point, so it might be hard to get rid of. But, kendo sticks, chairs, we saw it all in this match. Really, control was traded throughout. Bad knee, targeting the bad knee of Bayley. Belair wound up hitting a senton onto Bayley on the ladder itself, which caused it to kind of pop open, and then Bianca hit the KOD to retain. I think both women look great. No real complaints to this one. I think the right woman won. Do I think this feud is over? I don't think so. Obviously, we have Money in the Bank next month. It would be interesting. I can almost guarantee that Bayley will be in the Money in the Bank ladder match for the women. The women's division is probably weaker, as weak as it's been in recent years. Ideally, Becky Lynch will be back by Money in the Bank, but there's no guarantee. She's taking her time with that. She was spotted in the Performance Center earlier this week, so we can only hope for the best. But right now, the women's division's a little tight, and they could definitely use someone like Becky. But I'd expect Bayley to be a contender for that Money in the Bank. After that, we had Seth Rollins taking on Cesaro. This was a match we saw back at WrestleMania. I was lucky enough to see it in person. And it was more of the same. I mean, these guys have really good chemistry, so you can almost count on them to have a good match every time, and I see why they keep running it back. It definitely ended in a surprise. Rollins defeated Cesaro with a small package after a match that could have gone either way. I was kind of thinking that right before the small package, actually, what was running through my mind, Cesaro was in control, and I'm like, all right, let's finish this up, finish Rollins off, win the feud, and then maybe I would like to see it, even though I think there is something bigger in the future for Cesaro. He's already held the United States title in the past, but a feud between him and Sheamus, former tag team as the Bar, I think that would be really exciting. I'd love to see Cesaro try for the U.S. title before he tries for anything bigger, especially since we're supposed to be having Cena and potentially even Lesnar coming back in the near future. Maybe hold off the Cesaro main world title run. I would love to see him versus Sheamus in a feud, though. The Bar, the callbacks, I can only imagine. I think that would be really nice. But this match against Seth Rollins, Falcon, there was no curb stomps in this. I was disappointed. I wanted to see a curb stomp. We did have a Cesaro swing, of course. You got to do that for the views. But not much. Not much. I do think it'll continue. Sharpshooter was tried a couple times, but Rollins was able to get out of it into a small package and get the victory. My guess, because I don't know how realistic a U.S. title match against Sheamus would be for Cesaro, my guess is that the two, Rollins and Cesaro, will meet in the Money in the Bank ladder match next month. I could totally see them fitting into that match. A couple other guys I could see in there. Ali and Ricochet would be nice to see in there. Maybe call up some NXT guys. Bring Keith Lee back. Keith Lee's return being in that match would be huge because he can definitely make his mark. I think that'd be awesome. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Cesaro and Rollins, I don't think the feud's over. It's just a matter of more seeing how they format their next meeting because they're good. They're really good together, both inside and out of the ring. The promos have been solid. Part of me wishes Rollins would go back to being, the architect, the burn it down persona. I like that a lot better than the Money Night Messiah, now the drip god or whatever he's doing with the suits. I'm not the biggest fan of that. I am a big fan of Seth Rollins, and nonetheless, great talent, and he always proves it in the ring. The next match, and this was the match that almost made me turn off my computer. Shayna Baszler and Alexa Bliss. Now, I tweeted earlier this morning that the only way I would accept an Alexa Bliss victory was if The Fiend came back and got involved, because really, without The Fiend, Alexa Bliss's gimmick at the moment just is not what it was, and it's not what it could be. There's definitely some wind taken out of the sails of that gimmick, and it does not hit the same. Lily the doll she wasn't there tonight, thank God, but is unnecessary, really, really childish of WWE. I know it's a doll, but the fact that they're stooping to, I don't know, if they want to go make movies, then go make movies. But this is not the place, not the time. And it was just really, really frustrating to see some stuff on hand again. Shayna Baszler looks like $1 million, and she'd look like $1 billion if they got rid of Nia Jax and Reginald. Unfortunately, they hung around. They were at ringside tonight. I miss Shayna. You remember when she was NXT Women's Champ? I remember. It was amazing. So if we can get Shayna on the same level that she was before, I don't even care if you send her back to NXT, whatever it takes. Get her away from Nia Jax and Reginald. She's not made for tag team stuff. She had her reign. It's gone. It is what it is. I don't want to see it again. I need Shayna Baszler to be a single star because that's exactly what she can be. She has the look. She has the ability. Everything works. It just needs to be booked correctly, and I feel so bad because they're really wasting Shayna's career as she nears her 40s, I believe. I believe she's late 30s, which is fine. But this match, okay, so not much to it, really. It's a lot of the, magic bullshit coming from Alexa Bliss. You can't look Alexa Bliss in the eyes. We found that out. Shayna did it. She completely lost focus. The moment that upset me the most didn't really necessarily play into the finish. Alexa looks Nia looks Alexa in the eyes, and all of a sudden we got ourselves a classic case of a voodoo doll or whatever. They're playing Simon Says over here. Alexa lifts her arm, Nia lifts her arm. They're just locked in a daze. Reginald's trying to get Nia to snap out of it. Here we come. And then Alexa goes like this. Nia slaps Reginald. I believe that causes Shayna to lose focus again. At this point, I wrote in my notes, "Nope, I'm done." This sent me into a world of not anger, but just straight frustration because I knew something stupid was going to happen like that. Reginald takes a slap. Nothing comes out of this really with them, but Alexa winds up hitting kind of a variant of the Sister Abigail. She grabs it a little differently than Bray would. Hits that. Shayna kind of slides over for her. Alexa hits her regular finisher, Twisted Bliss, and picks up the victory. I'm not going to stop watching wrestling just because I love it a little too much. And what happened, the matches that came after were good enough, especially the other women's match left on this card, which was really, really good in my opinion. Will keep me coming back, but this needs to change. I don't know what they can really do to combat this, how they could finish this feud. I mean, how with a couple of the past feuds, since probably the beginning of the year, they've just straight dropped it. I mean, hell, you release Aleister Black and just completely drop the stuff with Big E like it never happened. I can think of a couple. I mean, Lacey Evans got pregnant, so they dropped the thing with Charlotte Flair. I mean, they're not new to just completely dropping things out of nowhere, but I guess there's no real reason to do this. I would just because it sucks. It's my least favorite part of WWE right now, probably. I don't know if the Fiend can even save it at this point because the Fiend, in my opinion, was even getting a little stale. But yeah, Alexa picked up the victory. We moved to Sami Zayn and Kevin Owens, another match I got to see at WrestleMania. These guys, like Cesaro and Rollins times 10. I mean, the chemistry between Owens and Zayn is out of this world. Obviously, they've been fighting each other for years now, decades almost. And it was another great match. It was honestly a little different from WrestleMania given the circumstances, as the other night, Commander Aziz, who I'm still not really happy about him being in the ring on live television. I know he's got the size, but he's very, very green in the ring, and it's tough to watch at times. But he hit him with two Nigerian nails, which is what we're calling the Samoan spike for Commander Aziz. Hit him right in the throat. Owens was struggling throughout the match, coughing a lot, struggling to breathe. I think he might have hurt his shoulder. Almost not even halfway through the match, something happens to Owens, and the whole rest of the way, like 3/4 of the match, he's fighting with one arm. Luckily he's a righty, but he's holding his left arm like this. It's really a struggle for him throughout, and he shows it pretty well, and that's something I like about it. Both men, I mean, they can make anything look really, really exciting. A couple sentons, couple big clotheslines. There was plenty of fight in Owens, and it was a courageous effort. But for the first time since, I want to say, last October, Sami Zayn picks up a one-on-one victory with a haluva kick, which if you go and look back at the replay, I mean, that's an impressive haluva kick. It actually gets a piece of Owens, which makes it look even better. Because, Owens doesn't care. He's willing to do whatever he needs to make that shit look good. And it looked great. Big win for Zayn. I don't know what happens with this. I'm still waiting on the day where Zayn and Owens team up. They're a tag team, whether as heels or faces. I mean, they have chemistry against each other. Imagine the chemistry with each other. I mean, that tag team in the tag division, that would be really exciting. But for now, I'm not sure what happens from here since we've kind of milked it since WrestleMania all the way to now. Apollo Crews, is he playing into this? I mean, Sami Zayn was able to kind of use Aziz to have that match against Owens. I don't know how he'll play in, or how Owens or Zayn will play into even the Intercontinental title run, but I guess we'll see. I mean, overall, like I said, good match. Owens hung in there. Hopefully he's not injured. Hopefully whatever is up with his shoulder or his arm, his elbow, whatever isn't that bad, and we're able to see him again soon. Overall, a good match. Now my favorite match of the night, for the Raw Women's title, Rhea Ripley and Charlotte Flair. Charlotte Flair won this by DQ. It's kind of a controversial DQ because if you watch wrestling consistently, you know that stuff with the announce table typically is not a disqualification, especially what Ripley did. So that bar kind of thing that covers the monitors on the announce table. All Ripley really did was kind of pull that back, and it hit into Charlotte, earning her the DQ. But this was after an amazing match, a big back and forth. It went longer than I thought it would, but I really wasn't complaining. Both women looked great, like $1,000,000. I still love Ripley's entrance when she does the stomp and the camera zooms in. Oh my, that's probably one of my favorite entrances right now in wrestling. Can't get enough of that. Charlotte starting off as a heel right out the gate. Ref raising the title to right before the match starts. She grabs it from him, kind of tosses it at Ripley and kind of cheap shots her. And from there we go. German suplexes, moonsaults from Flair. Couple submission attempts. Cloverleaf was in at one point for Ripley. Of course, we had to have the chops. The woo chops. Good stuff there. A lot of 2 counts, rope breaks. Flair tried a dirty pin at one point. It's good heel stuff from Charlotte. A lot of people think she's not overrated, I don't think, but overbooked. And that may be true, but this was a rematch of last year's WrestleMania, which that was a great match back last year. That was for the NXT Women's Championship. And Flair got the win. This was supposed to be redemption for Ripley. And based on the DQ, I mean, you can say that this is not over yet. After the match, after the DQ, Ripley kind of attacks Flair, finally hits the riptide on her and looks like the dominant one. I don't think this was a heel turn for Ripley because, one, Flair's already a heel. Two, they're kind of jawing at each other after the match, kind of trading words as Ripley's heading back up the ramp. And Ripley says something along the lines of, "I did what you would have done to me." So this is really just Ripley stooping to her level. And Ripley's never been 100% face. I mean, there was kind of not controversy, but conversation as to what side she's really on. I think she's in the middle. She's kind of an anti-hero, and stooping to a heel's level is something that she's not afraid to do. And I really like that. So this is definitely not the end. I don't think this is the end until Ripley gets a clean victory over Flair. This will press forward to next month's pay-per-view. I can almost guarantee it. And I'm looking forward to it. I don't expect them to reinvent the wheel or anything, but I do think they could bring us another really good match a month from tonight. And we move to our main event, which was also seen at WrestleMania. It opened night 1 of those festivities, that being Bobby Lashley versus Drew McIntyre. This is the first time we've seen them in Hell in a Cell, which definitely added to it, but the ending was not one you'd expect for a Hell in a Cell. I'm sure it's not one the Twitter fans will be happy about if I go check that later. It ended in a roll-up. Bobby Lashley retained the title via a roll-up inside Hell in a Cell. Kind of very super anticlimactic, but overall it was a good match. They were beating each other up. Big boys slapping meat. You love to see it. Drew McIntyre's back by the end was bruised and bloodied and welts all over it. He went through a lot. Lashley didn't look like he got busted open at all, but he definitely went through it. MVP played a role in this in several different ways. Towards the beginning, he helped Lashley kind of trap McIntyre in the corner with the kendo sticks and kind of beat up on him. He slipped Lashley his cane in order to help with a comeback of Lashley's. But there were a lot of big spots in this, spine busters, power bombs, plenty of 2 counts, reversals, headbutts, future shock DDTs. I'm just naming moves at this point, but that's what this match was. There was a lot of back and forth, chairs, shots, stuff with the kendo stick, couple spots through the table. Lashley had McIntyre in a hurt lock, and McIntyre basically backed Lashley into the corner and put him through a table. And then there's another big one where it kind of looked like a choke slam. Maybe it was more of a rock bottom. You couldn't tell the hand placement, but Lashley had McIntyre on the apron and threw him down onto the floor through a table. That was another big spot closer to the end. McIntyre almost had it in the bag, but the one mistake he made was letting MVP into the cell. It's key to mention also, I don't know why I didn't mention this before, that the ref got knocked out, hit with a chair. Lashley ducked one of Drew's, and Drew knocked out the ref. To get the new ref in, you got to open that cell door, and guess who snuck in? It was MVP. So while Drew's beating up on MVP, which is, fine and good, Lashley has his time to recover. Lashley winds up taking advantage, and now MVP is locked in there with them. Bobby avoids a Claymore, and then we had that choke slam I discussed. Drew avoids a spear. It's a big back and forth. Drew backslide 2 count, headbutts him and then future shock DDT. MVP holds Drew in the corner so he can't hit the Claymore. And then Lashley comes back into the ring because he was outside the ring recovering, slides back in, rolls up McIntyre from the corner and gets the victory. And based on the stipulation that they agreed to earlier this past week on Raw, While Lashley is the WWE champion, McIntyre cannot make another challenge. So we don't know how long the Almighty era will last, but we do know that any other title bouts for Lashley will not be against Drew McIntyre, which is good. I think they handled this well. It's a unique stipulation because I don't remember, you know, anything like that in recent memory. And loser leaves SmackDown, loser leaves NXT, whatever. They leave the brand, they leave whatever. This is just straight. You gotta leave me alone. I mean, McIntyre can do whatever he wants on Raw now, except challenge for the WWE title. So I'm interested to see how they handle this because this is pretty unique. I like how they did this. I think the fans will be happy because although this was a good match, Lashley and McIntyre is getting a little stale, and I think everyone can agree on that. We've seen better from both of them, and now it's time to see what Lashley can do against other competitors. We're still waiting on him versus Keith Lee. I think everyone's waiting on Keith Lee to just come back and do something because Raw could use him right now, and I think all of wrestling could use him because we miss Keith Lee. He's great. So hopefully we see him back soon or something. No idea on who Lashley's new competitor will be, but it won't be McIntyre, and that's really, really good news. Overall, this is a good pay-per-view. A small package and a roll-up. I was not expecting both of those in one pay-per-view, especially one like Hell in a Cell. It's one of the more prominent pay-per-views. I expect better finishes. So finishers aside, it was and a DQ on top of that. Finishers aside, I'd say it was a good pay-per-view. Besides Shayna and Alexa, they got to figure something out with that because I'm so tired of the playtime movie bullshit because that's not what wrestling is. That's not what it's ever been. And I really don't need it. I know I'm not alone in that opinion. Without the Fiend, this Alexa thing sucks. They need to do something. But for now, I'll see you guys soon for the Money in the Bank review in a month. You might catch some other wrestling stuff in between. I'll see what I'm up to, see what I can come up with. But like, subscribe. Let me know your favorite match from Hell in a Cell. I know mine was Rhea and Charlotte. That definitely carried the night for me. But for now, for James for Hiram Perry's Pit, I've been Matthew Perry. And I'll see you guys next time. Thank you for watching.